Once again, if you'd like to address the board, please fill out a slip on the table and bring it to me.
Guys good? Rugal?
Turn your microphone. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 3:01. Please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to remind everybody to please silence your cell phones for the duration of the meeting. All right, Commissioners, approval of agenda for September 5th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda for September 5th, 2023 as written.
I'll second.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor? Rugal?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda has been approved. Approval of minutes from the August 1st, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? If not, I am open to a motion.
I'll move we approve the minutes of the August 1st, 2023 meeting.
I'll second it.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from August 1st, 2023. Gardner?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. As we have no unfinished business, we're going to move right into our new business with CUP 23-001. Dr. Ballantoni, please.
Good afternoon. I am here this afternoon on behalf of Tallahassee LLC, who submitted an application for exploration of uranium in the Tallahassee area, historic uranium deposit area. Today, you will be hearing from Mr. Andrew Ferrier, who is the Managing Director of Okapi. You will be hearing from Mr. Tim Brown, who is the U.S. Country Manager for Okapi, and I will bring up the end a little bit. And we also have with us today Mr. Stephen Cohen from Environmental Restoration Group, and he is our uranium industry regulatory specialist because of the uniqueness of the target material, uranium. So with that, I will pass the presentation to Mr. Ferrier.
Thanks for that, and thank you everyone for their time today. As Angela mentioned, my name's Andrew Ferrier. I'm the Managing Director of Okapi Resources. And notice when you look for the presentation, there's a lot of references to Okapi Resources here. I want to just close the loop. Okapi Resources is the Australian company. We're an Australian ASX listed company, Australian Stock Exchange listed company, and we're the 100% owner of Tallahassee LLC, which is the US company in which we're applying for the CUP permit. So that's effectively just the US holding company for us. I'm based in Sydney, Australia, across here for the meeting. This is a really important part of the process for us. I'll go through a little bit about what Okapi does, but effectively we're a uranium company very much focused on uranium around the globe. We also have some other commodities in Australia, but again, very focused on uranium. Thank you. This is a bit of a snapshot of the team. We're a very relatively small and nimble team, but we have a vast amount of experience in permitting and uranium as well. As I mentioned, I'm the MD there on the left. My background is in chemical engineering. I've been in the mining industry my whole life. I lived over here in North America for about 6 or 7 years, but based in Australia. Fabrizio Pirelli is our chairman, based in Sydney. Tim, you're about to meet shortly. Jim Villeneuve, who unfortunately can't be here today, but has a huge amount of experience of permitting projects, in particular a uranium project in Wyoming. Leonard is our CFO, and quite importantly, Ben Vallerine is a non-executive director of Okapi Resources. Ben was intimately involved in Black Range and is obviously bringing a whole lot of experience and know-how to how we operate and what we plan and our vision for Tallahassee. This is just a bit of a geographical snapshot of Okapi. So we obviously have the Tallahassee project here in Fremont County. We also have the Maybell uranium project in northwestern Colorado. We also have some claims in what we call the Rattler project, which is effectively that LaSalle district in Utah. We also have a pretty substantial position in the Athabasca Basin in northern Saskatchewan. We've got 6 projects there. We're actively planning on drilling one of those projects in the upcoming North American winter. We've been through a permitting process there and a period of consultation with the First Nations group over the last 6 months, which has been highly effective for us. So as you can see, we're involved in a lot of things, but Tallahassee is effectively our flagship asset and the one we're most focused on. This is just a bit of taking a step back and looking at the uranium industry as a whole, and in particular how it applies to the US. So nuclear is still a very important component of how the US sources its energy. The US has 93 operating reactors today. It accounts for 20% of all electricity still produced in the US. But the reason I put up this energy security map is that the US at the moment is completely dependent on sourcing its yellowcake from overseas. And as you can see, that's developed over the last couple of decades. And why that's become so relevant, particularly over the last 12 to 14 months, is that a large chunk of that uranium is sourced out of Russia. Either that uranium comes from Russia or through Kazakhstan into Russia, but obviously with the invasion of Ukraine, energy security, when you factor in the nuclear is 20%, which is a huge component, this is becoming a more and more important factor moving forward. So why is there such a renewed interest for uranium, particularly over the last 2 to 3 years? I think it's a factor of 2 things. One is the world just needs more energy. It's as simple as that. It seems like a pretty simple statement to make, but if we're all going to drive around in electrified cars, we need a whole lot more grid power to go in the system, and that power needs to come from somewhere. So when you think about new power capacity into the grid, nuclear has, 2 key benefits, right? One, it's clean. From a carbon perspective, it's 0 carbon emissions. And the second one is it's reliable. It operates 24/7, which gives it a unique advantage against its other comparables in that renewable space. So nuclear is getting a lot of attention. It's 10% of the world's power supply. That's 440 nuclear reactors. But probably what's more important is that as we sit here today, there are 55 nuclear reactors being built around the globe. So there's countries that are rapidly developing. Those 55 reactors are spread globally around, but largely pushed from countries like China and India, who understand the importance of clean baseload energy moving forward. And this is just a government snapshot of where the US currently sits, at least from my perspective. It's a bipartisan issue at the moment. The Inflation Reduction Act announced last year was very, very focused on clean energy, and nuclear was an extremely important part of that. And there was a considerable amount of that. It was $369 million in total. Around $330 billion of that went to tax credits, the existing nuclear power fleet, to make sure that they're economically viable moving forward for a long period of time. And nuclear is going to be a very important part of the nuclear and energy mix in the US here to come for the foreseeable future. This is largely a snapshot of of what I've already said in terms of where nuclear stands from a CO2 emissions perspective. It ranks the lowest, and it cannot be beaten on that front. And I think in general, most people's attitudes and thoughts to nuclear have changed. If you look at trends and plots, and from sort of polls taken from the general public here in the US, they are constantly on the uptick, as the understanding of how important nuclear will be to achieving clean energy here in the US and how important that's going to be moving forward. This slide is just a plot effectively of the yellow cake price. Yellow cake is U3O8, which is the material that uranium mines produce. And this is, you can see when I say that there's a renewed interest in nuclear, you can see this here just in the spot price of uranium. If you look back over the last 2 years, it was trading at $30 a pound. This graph actually shows $57 a pound. That's, you know, even redundant, even though we put this presentation together last week, it's already ticked up to $60 a pound. So it's obviously moving beast, but as you can see, there's going to be a lot more incentives globally for people to move into the nuclear and the uranium space moving forward. This is just a very clear snapshot of where we stand today at the Tallahassee projects. I'm going to pass it over to Tim after this slide, but there's a huge amount of data. We're blessed with a huge amount of data on the Tallahassee projects. We'll show you some slides coming up about how much drilling's been completed on the project in the past, and we're not trying to replicate what that drilling's been done. We're blessed with that data, and that data is very helpful for us to understand, you know, how we're going to move forward with the project. But what we're sort of seeking today is that conditional use permit that allows us to do some additional drilling, which will help us do more technical studies on the project in combination with all the existing data that we already have on the project today. And hopefully there's some charts and graphs going forward, which Tim will show to help highlight that. But I thought that was just important to show you exactly where we are in that process today. Thanks for your time. I'll pass it across to Tim.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrew. I'd like to start off talking about an overview of the district, talking about the surface and minerals up there and the extent of our land package that is shown on the slide on the screen. Currently, you know, the amount of surface, private surface that have been leased is shown here. Acres of private minerals are shown here as well. So the Taylor Ranch sits up here, a good portion of which minerals have been leased by Okapi. Just south of that is the Boyer Ranch, shown right here. And the blue color, the light blue color, shows the mineral rights that we've leased from both those ranches. Further south, in the South T-Bar area, the dark blue color are the minerals that we've leased from the South T-Bar Association, and the red polygon around that outlines the surface rights that we've secured at this point in time. So the point I want to make here is this private surface, private minerals, and we have a significant land package in a well-known historic mining district. The pick and shovels that you see here, a little hard on this screen, you know, some of the historic workings in there. The black dots that you see are all the drilling that we know about in the district. So people have been working on this for a significant amount of time, and we're trying to pick up where they left off and continue that work. Some of the agreements that we have in place include a road use agreement. I'm sorry, we focused again on that northern section down here. We've got a blow-up map or a location map in the bottom left-hand corner. But we have a road use agreement with the South T-Bar Property Owners Association, in which they get compensated for the road use that we're going to use out there. I have to track trips in and out of the place and report those on a monthly basis. We discriminate between light vehicles and heavy vehicles and pay a higher price for if we've got water trucks going in on a regular basis. So they get a little bit higher rate for that. And then the compensation is on a sliding scale for the number of round trips that we make every day. So again, it has to be tracked very closely and carefully. And then, as you know, we're here for the conditional use permit to drill the 20 holes up there, and we've also filed a notice of intent with the DRMS for permission from the state to do that, and the subsequent reclamation and bonding requirements that go along with that. So the purpose of the project, you know, the limits of the ore body are well known. They've been known for 50-some years. But what we don't know is a lot more. We need to know more information about hydrological, the metallurgical work. We need more geochemical work, geotechnical work, and environmental work. So that's the purpose of the program. We plan to drill 20 core holes out there and extract core from the ground rather than chips or cutting, so we can take it off-site and look at it and do our studies on that work. The data that we generate will be used to design and conduct additional tests and technical studies. Before the exploration work starts, there are several things that we need to do, which include meeting with the surface owners on those parcels that we've leased where we plan to drill some holes. So we have to contact them and make sure that they know we're coming out there on their property. We will have a road inspection with the South T-Bar Property Owners Association before we do any work out there and look at the condition of the road. Make sure that culverts are all in good shape, they're not collapsed, they haven't been, or if they have, notice it. And then we'll do an inspection afterwards as well. And as we've said to them, if there's any damage, we pay for that. But so it's a before and after. Next step will involve staking some of the collar locations out there. It's mostly flat, so we don't have to do too much work to build drill pads or roads. There will be some, and then we'll dig 2 pits or sumps on each pad. If I can expand on that for just a second, the reason for that is that'll help us contain any of the uranium-bearing material. We know where that horizon is. We'll use the first sump to circulate water and drill cuttings. And when we get down to the ore zone, we'll use the second sump. We know where that is in each one of these drill holes. And what we'll do is we'll use the second sump, use that for our cuttings. When we're done drilling with the hole, we've done with the survey, we will mix those cuttings with cement and pump it back down the hole into the ore zone and cement that hole. That will also prevent any cross-contamination between aquifers. I'll talk about that a little bit more on a subsequent slide here as well. These are just a couple of pictures showing there's a drill collar staked in the field. It's nothing more than a stake that shows where we want to drill the hole. We flag a trail into it. Most of the holes that we've picked are on existing roads and trails already, so we won't have to build any new ones. And when the work starts, you know, it's well worth the time to scrape off the topsoil and stockpile it. That's pretty valuable material, because when we're done, we have to reclaim that thing. And we'll survey the hole, we'll plug and abandon the hole, we'll document that, and then we'll reclaim it. We'll flatten it out to original contours, and we'll bring that topsoil back over the top of it, rake it up, and then put seeds on it.
If I could, I have a question.
Sure.
These pictures that you're showing us are, for example, those are not pictures of actual work that's been done out there.
They are actually in the Tallahassee district. This was Black Range Minerals.
And this was done years ago then, is that correct?
Yes, this was 2010, 2012, 2013, something like that.
Thank you.
So yeah, and thanks for the question, but yes, this is all in the district itself. Here are a couple pictures of drill rigs at work. Just a chance to talk about what we plan to do, how we plan to do it, and when we plan to do it. Don't know quite what drills are available now, so I can't tell you if it's going to be a track-mounted drill or a rubber-tired mounted drill. We'll see what's available when the time comes. We'll have a drill on site. We'll have another truck with the rods on it, the drill steel on it, or maybe they'll put it in a rack. Most importantly, we'll have a water truck, and that will make, I think, 2 round trips to town per day to bring water out and keep the drill running. We will be coring these holes from top to bottom, so again, all the core is going to be taken off-site, and we reduce the amount of cuttings as if we were drilling a conventional hole where you just bring in rock chips up to the surface. We'll have a portable sanitation closet out there, up to 4 people at site at any one time. Drill crews are generally 2-man crews. The water truck driver is the 3rd person. He'll be running back and forth to town getting water. At night when we drill, the lights will be downcast so they don't broadcast over a big area. And another key piece that I'd like to make key point I'd like to make is you know, with the program that we've laid out, I think it's going to take about 2 months to complete the program. So we've talked about a drill season in our application, and talked about the best time to drill, April to November, because that's the warmest time. But we won't be drilling the entire time period. We'll be drilling for about 2 months. Once we start, we're going to knock the program out and complete it, and then take a look at the data that we've generated. And then this is an example of some of the reclamation that's been done up there. The photo on the left shows that same pad after it was drilled, after it was reclaimed, right back to original contour. And the slide on the left, it's a different pad, but it shows you what it looks like when it's been completely revegetated. This is a good lead into the discussion of reclamation and the bond that we'll have to have in place. You know, we've got a bond on the Taylor Boyer Ranch for $278,000 for 60 holes. And I don't know what the bond will be here. That's generated by the state of Colorado, but it's likely to be over $100,000. And I want to make the point that we're motivated to do a good job cleaning up, planting the grass, reseeding it, and getting our bond money back. None of it comes back until it's been revegetated. Just 1 second before you scroll down. What I wanted to say here as well is, you know, make the point that Black Range Minerals had all their bond money returned as they completely reclaimed things. So the area up there, you'll see in a couple of slides, looks very clean and neat. Next one, please. Apologies, I should have made my dots bigger. It's a little harder to see on this screen, but again, you see the red outline of the surface that we've leased out there, and the holes are these blue dots. The 20 holes that we've planned are these blue dots inside that boundary. I wanted to show that slide, and then if you can just scroll to the next one. So those are the 20 collars, or the 20 hole locations. Those holes are shown on this map. They are still there. But the point I want to make is the yellow dots show all the drilling that's been done up there since Cypress was working up there in the 1970s. So they've done a significant amount of work up there, much more drilling, pad building, reclamation than we plan to do with our holes. Those are roughly 200-foot centers on those dots. And I was there earlier this year on the road right down here, and I took photographs looking up the valley and down the valley, and those are the next pictures coming up. You know, it's beautiful out there now. You can't see any evidence of the pads and roads in those areas where they did that much work.
Is that data from those prior drilling projects unavailable to you? That's why you have to go back in? Or
We have the data, but that's a great question. We have the data, but that tells us where the mineralization is located below the ground surface. What it doesn't give us any information on is the geology, the metallurgy, the geotechnical, you know, the rock strength, that sort of thing. And that's why we need to go. And that's why my holes are placed, you know, essentially in the heart of all that drilling, because that's where the mineralization takes place. We just don't have that information available, and we don't know what the next step will be until we gather this data.
Once you drill down and hit the uranium pocket, do you continue drilling to the bottom depth of that?
We know where the top of the uranium is.
Right.
We know where the bottom is from the previous drilling. So yes, we'll go through that zone and touch the bottom, the older rocks at the bottom, you know, so that we get the full thickness of the mineralization.
at what depth is the bottom?
It's variable in there,
Approximate
although roughly it's about 500 feet down and 50 to 100 feet thick. So just to touch on a typical drill hole and the abandonment procedures that we're going to do. They are all abandoned according to state requirements. We have to reclaim, as I mentioned, the sumps and the pads at the surface. And we'll start doing that as soon as the drilling and the logging is complete. And again, everything is bonded with DRMS. We will drill the hole. You can see the ore zone is highlighted down here on the bottom, just above the basement rocks. And that's the material that we'll put into the second sump so that we contain that uranium-bearing material. And when we backfill the hole, and we have to do this while the rig is sitting right there, we'll mix that with cement and pump it right back down the hole. We have to plug at least 70% of that hole with cement. And we're going to put as much of that material as we can, all of it if possible, right back here where it came from. Because the material above it has no uranium in it. But we'll cement that hole up to 70% of it. The top 30% will get filled with bentonite. Both of those will keep any cross-contamination from happening in the aquifer. And then we'll put a small concrete plug at the top with a aluminum plug on cap on it so we know what the hole was. And that's what DRMS will see when they come out and look at it. They have to inspect that. And they'll get a copy of the driller's report, abandonment report, where they keep track of the bags of cement and the bags of bentonite that go down the hole. And finally, when we're done, again, DRMS will come out there and inspect the sites, inspect the reclamation that we've done to make sure it meets their standards, make sure the landowners are happy as well. We'll have the follow-up inspection with the South T-Bar Property Owners Association, and then the hard work starts. We start reviewing the data, do the analysis, and plan for the next steps. What you see in the background image there is a slide that I put together showing, surface topography up here in gray, the colors of the drill holes, but we have a pretty good understanding of the geology underneath. It's just I don't have all the details I need on the metallurgy and the geotechnical work, and that's why we have to go put a few more holes into it. Angela?
It's nice when I don't have to speak, right? It's kind of nice to have somebody else to listen to. So just to wrap up then, environmentally then, just some control issues is that there's spill kits on site in case of a spill. Diesel fuel, there won't be any tanks stored someplace for transfer. It's brought out by the vendor and then put into the rigs to use directly. There's a wattle, so we understand erosion control, which will be placed on the down gradient side, so there isn't any silting or movement of materials off the drill pad. Your packets contain a fire protection plan, and we heard back from the fire chief. That's Exhibit 315. We also did the roadway impact analysis form, and it was stamped and reviewed by an engineer, traffic engineer. And I just want to be clear about this. So refreshingly, Tim said we need to disclose all traffic that could potentially be out there. So if we think about and look at the roadway impact analysis form in Exhibit 311, there are 2 drillers that are always there. So using the DOT, that's 4 trips. We have asked for 16. There are 2 water truck trips each time, so I'm at 8. And then there are 8 more trips, or 4 people, if you will, that can come in and out as needed, because Mr. Brown and Mr. Ferrier said we got to be completely transparent about what the road use is, and in addition, the South T-Bar Ranch, as Tim explained, is being compensated for truck traffic, and the weight of the vehicle matters. So the other individuals could possibly be a geologist or an inspector or a vendor bringing something out that they need because the rig broke down or any of those things. So know that the 16 trips aren't conservatively low, that's conservatively high. And in addition, Mike Witt reached out to us and had a discussion, nice discussion with Mr. Brown. And once it was understood that this is really a 2-month project, it's very short, that there'll be a regular on-site all the time activity.
Angela, can I stop you? Can you clarify 2 month? Is that 2 months for 20 holes?
Yes,
Okay.
beginning to end, because once it drills on site, you don't take it back.
Okay.
You leave it on site, it runs all the time, pulling core. It gets to take a break when they move it to the new collar location. And then it's done. As soon as it's out of there, it's out of there. And then they can do the reclamation and any road cleanup or anything like that that needs to happen. Okay? Give me a minute here. Water monitoring. So a unique aspect of this application is it got to learn from Black Range Minerals back from 2018 to 2013. We all may remember that. And in that, please forgive me, I had cataract surgery, so I can't see with my glasses on and I can't see with my glasses off right now. So one of the things I did is, I know Joanne was thrilled, I spent many days up at the county building in the office going through all the files of Black Range Minerals, trying to learn what did they do, what worked, what didn't work. So one of the things that came out of that was this water monitoring program. And Okapi, Tim, they've decided to pick up where Black Range left off that was approved by the county, which was approved by DRMS, and which was reviewed by the county's consultant, Western Water and Land, that was hired and paid for by Black Range Minerals to review the data and prepare reports for the county. So I went through all of those reports, we all read them, and we gleaned from there the type of program that was recommended, and it is that monitoring program that will restart when this is approved to establish baseline, and we'll do it just as Susan Wyman of Whetstone and Associates recommended in the fall. And I think, I don't know what color those dots are. What color are those dots?
They're orange and blue.
Which one's which? Help me out here.
The orange ones are the surface water sample sites. Blue ones are the domestic wells.
What he said. Okay, so there's going to be surface water and there's going to be groundwater both. And the plan is that should the county decide to approve this, the first thing that will happen is the samples will be taken. They have a company and a consultant in the wings ready to go out and start this immediately. Something that's important that was in the 2012 report, the review by Western Water and Land, is that it was determined after 4 years of exploration, and substantial exploration, mind you. So Black Range Minerals had perhaps 60 holes, and they would have 5 to 6 rigs at a time. I mean, it was a massive program out there. You may have remembered that. Keep in mind that the proposal before you is a total of 20, 1 rig, 2 months, much shorter. But even with that extensive program by Black Range Minerals, the county's consultant came to the conclusion in the bold print that at the time there was no evidence to suggest the elevated concentrations of uranium or other constituents in the wells are related to the exploration drilling. And as a matter of fact, there's another statement in this same report that says the heterogeneity of the water quality is a result of the heterogeneity of the deposit itself. So all of the drilling done didn't have any legacy impacts to ground or surface water. Also, Tallahassee is a no discharge program. Everything goes back in the hole. They recirculate the water. They're actually going to use fresh water in their drilling, so they're actually adding to the groundwater. Sumps are placed, that is, the pits are placed substantially away from the surface water body to be protective of that. And of course, there's an abandonment process that has to happen and must be approved by the DRMS. In addition, I believe the county engineer has requested that they attend any of the post-mining inspections, and we welcome that to make sure everybody's happy. And in addition to that, the landowners get to come out and weigh in as well. Next slide, please, sir. So we have heard from the community regarding erosion control, and that will be wattles and minimizing the surface disturbance. In addition, there was a mention regarding potential impacts to waterways, riparian areas, wildlife habitat, and water quality. And I would like to just re-emphasize that even after those 4 to 5 years that Black Range was out there, substantially, a lot of activity. The conclusion in 2012, the final report from the county's consultant was that there was no impact to the habitat, wildlife habitat, or the riparian areas, or the water quality. There were no legacy impacts from Black Range minerals. And so Okapi, or Tallahassee, is implementing all of those practices that were already proven to be protective of this area. So lastly, in conclusion, we respectfully request that you consider recommending approval of this project to the Board of County Commissioners. This project will extend the work for the next step of project development. As Mr. Brown stated, where the deposit is known based on the previous data. What isn't known now is some of the geotechnical and hydrological issues that need to be understood about the deposit itself. This is a much smaller scale, and it's already implementing the proactive measures that were taken in the much larger scale. I believe that this was a pretty complete application. We do, considering the amount of time that was used to research the historic documents upstairs and all of those reports. But we do request a few waivers since there isn't any legacy impacts. We were asking that we don't landscaping. There isn't any parking, it's just reclamation. Lighting, there is no permanent lighting. There's only the down pointing lights when they need it, and there aren't any utilities. There is just the portable sanitation closet.
Thank you, Angela. All right, Dan, would you like to give us the county report on this project?
Hello, everyone. So in front of us, we have, hold on, let me just get a visual up if we could. Have something for you guys to look at as I talk. Maybe. All right, I'll go ahead. So Tallahassee Resources Exploration Project, CUP 23-001. Tallahassee Resources has submitted application to conduct mineral exploration activities to further delineate the known uranium deposit and collect data that will guide development of an environmentally responsible mining technique encompassing a boundary of 734 acres. Drilling activity will commence once the application is approved. A drilling season will typically commence in the spring and continue until cold weather or conditions settle into the valley in the fall. Up to 20 drill holes can be drilled in an exploration season, and all drill holes will be immediately plugged and abandoned in accordance with the Colorado Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety regulations. The location is Tallahassee's mineral interests encompass leases and agreements with surface and mineral owners in the Taylor Ranch, Boyer Ranch, Hanson Deposit, and Picnic Tree Deposit located in the South T-Bar Ranch development. The background of this area: Okapi Resources is an Australian-based company. Tallahassee Resources is a U.S.-based operating unit of Okapi for the Tallahassee Resources Project. Starting in 2019, Okapi began acquiring former Black Range mineral interests in Fremont County associated with the long-recognized and studied uranium deposits in the Tallahassee Creek area. Tallahassee Resources intends to continue the work of Black Range Minerals. This project site previously held a CUP permit 08-001 and a modification to the CUP of 10-003, which had a CUP boundary of 8,169 acres. During that time, the site was permitted for 6 to 8 drill rigs and approximately 50 workers and approximately 51 pieces of equipment. The anticipated permit life was 2 to 5 years of peak exploration activity. The surrounding zoning of this area is all agricultural forestry with residential purposes. The estimated traffic count is, I have 24 trips a day. Was that 16?
It's 16.
Okay, so, yep, so it's 16 trips per day. The number of access points is 1. Number of employees, a maximum of 4. Standard hours of operation are daylight hours and up to 6 days a week. Drilling hours of operations would be 24 hours a day until the drilling of a hole is completed, and anticipated maximum duration of a hole, depending on the soil type or rock, could be up to 14 days. The work duration is spring through fall, weather dependent, no winter months of operation. On the application, it has a permit life of up to 10 years. Let's see here. The bulk water will be purchased from Canyon City and hauled to the site by a private contractor. They will have chemical toilets on site. Refuse will be handed through a strict carry-in and carry-out procedure. Any lighting with the project will be used once the drilling operations have begun, and they will be downlit. Access is off of County Road 21 at the South T-Bar Gate. And for drainage, the soil erosion control measures required at each drill location, as well as steep roadway cuts as needed. The applicant has requested to forego a formal drainage plan. That's one of the waivers. And that's been discussed with the county engineer, and a project of this size and magnitude with the minimal impacts that they're trying to achieve, a formal drainage study just really doesn't apply for the couple drill pads they're going to push out. So they are going to handle soil and erosion control as needed, but a formal drainage plan is kind of too much to ask at this one. Staff has requested comments from various review agencies. Staff has incorporated comments received to date either in their entirety or in part of the staff report. So, the Fremont Conservation District. Soil health and erosion, exploration for various minerals have been done in this area. So these are two of their questions/statements that they provided. So soil and erosion, exploration for various minerals have been done in this area already, and where are the reports from past explorations? And water quality and riparian habitat conservation, pollutants from the mining of uranium can contaminate aquatic ecosystems for hundreds of years, threatening downstream communities as well as fish and wildlife. Even small amounts of some pollutants can poison fish, accumulate in the food chain, and cause deformities and reproductive problems for aquatic species. Since the source of water for Fremont County is the Arkansas River, all phases of uranium development, exploration, mining, and milling can pose unique threats to species, ecosystems, and human communities along the river. Communities along the Arkansas River are food-producing agricultural fields which feed humans and animals across the state, and pollutants from this uranium could have a devastating effect on the agricultural communities, from habitat destruction of wildlife to bioaccumulation and irreversible pollutants of waters. Today's boom threatens to build upon uranium's legacy of environmental and social harm. The Fremont Conservation District is opposed to this exploration project based on the above statements. I'm going to touch on some of this a little bit later in my staff report. The applicant has been in contact with weed management, and they are going to follow an integrated weed management plan. FCDOT provided a roadway impact sheet. They request the right to monitor the roadways and reevaluate as needed in case anything changes at the site. The Fremont County engineer All comments were addressed. The Fremont County Engineer requests to participate in any post-reclamation inspections conducted by DRMS and post-road and stream crossing damage inspections as described by the applicant. The Fremont County Building Department, a portable chemical toilet may be used if permitted. Fire protection plan appears to be sufficient. And the Parks and Wildlife. As this property is located in the wintering range of elk, mule deer, and antelope, wildlife impacts could be minimized by applying seasonal timing limitations on mining activity. The riparian areas of the site are extremely valuable to wildlife, and CPW recommends following best management practices for working in these areas. We have received no public comment about this application. The waivers that we have in front of us is landscaping, lighting, utility, and drainage, which staff supports. So for recommendations, I've spoken with the Fremont Conservation District regarding the specifics of this project and provided access to records. I have also spoken with the applicant and give them the ability to address any concerns. Having made reasonable efforts to address any concerns, I have found the application is in compliance with the requirements of the Fremont County zoning resolution. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit application with the following contingencies/conditions. Contingency would be permitting of the chemical toilets, and conditions would be the Fremont County engineer participate in post-reclamation inspections conducted by the DRMS and post-road and stream crossing damage inspections as described by the applicant, and that FCDOT have the right to be notified of any changes that impact the roadway for reevaluation. So I had spoken with, let me flip back. I've spoken with, one more page, the Fremont Conservation District. I afforded them the opportunity to come in and review all of the files that we had. In their letter, the first part about the soil and erosion were the reports in the past. That was more of a question they had, that if that area had had so much exploration previously, what was the need for further? And the applicant has addressed what those needs would be. And commenting on the habitat conservation, obviously that's a major concern of theirs. And the applicant has specified that they intend to try and make take every step required. Their drilling campaign, while it is for that spring to fall season, but as they've explained, it's 2 months of actual drilling. It's just they're asking for that broader time frame so they could mitigate any impacts that the Division of Wildlife had for wintering range and habitat, because they're not planning on being on site at those times, and they're acutely aware of the riparian habitat conservation and sensitivity of the areas. So I believe they've addressed all of the concerns that were brought up.
Thank you.
That's it.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant or for Dan?
I have one on timing. You say are you anticipating being able to get this approved and your drilling done yet this year? Given the fact that the Department of Wildlife wants no drilling from December 1st to April 30th, and Colorado Parks and Wildlife wants none from November 1st to April 30th.
If we could, we would still do it this year.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. Would you come up to the microphone, please? It's better for our recording.
Yeah, thank you. If we could do it this year, we'd like to. Right, the sooner we get the information, the better. If it doesn't work out for all these reasons, that's why I said in the presentation, maybe the second quarter of next year. But you know, time is a big driver for us. And when I say second quarter, you know, it's like after the snow melts.
Yes.
You just don't want to fight with that or do damage to the roads.
Excuse me, I have a follow-up question on that. So, Mr. Brown, if you're unable to, when you receive all necessary approvals, and it looks like you won't be able to complete the job by the wildlife protection dates. Would you do what you can this year and complete it next year, or would you postpone the whole project until next year?
Really, I suspect we'd postpone until next year. We wouldn't want to go out there and build drill pads and put any roads in, because then you have to maintain them, and you're just generating more work and risk for yourselves. I'd rather do it all at once and makes it easier to control it.
Thank you.
I've got one concern. Most of the health concerns have been about seepage and leakage and water contamination. Yet they want to waive the drainage study. Now, that seems a little contrary to me. What is going to be in that drainage? Where's the moisture going to come from that we're concerned about draining? Is that from the drills?
Right, Bill?
Please, Dan.
So,
Yes.
on most of our other applications, the drainage study, say subdivisions was a hot button one, right? Like, where's the water gonna go? So, because the entire,
But
because
what water is it?
it would be rainwater if there was a rain event,
This is not,
or a snow melt
this is
sort
not
of.
moisture or liquid coming out of the drill.
This has nothing to do with any moisture or anything associated with the drilling. This would be natural moisture and which way it would drain off on the site. So that's why they were requesting a waiver on that drainage plan. And the engineer felt it would be sufficient due to the size and the minimal impacts. The minimal size of the drill pad, and the 2-track they would have going to that drill pad and then pulling back out, if any. So it was just felt that a formal drainage study over that large area to address the natural drainage was a large ask.
And just as a follow-up with that,
Yes, sir.
with the 2 pits that you're going to be building, in the process of drilling these holes and reclamation, so on and so forth, what happens if you get a big rain flood? You know, I mean, tremendous water, and it fills these pits up, and then the water in the pits overflow. Where does that water go?
Well, you know, if the pits start to get full, the drillers will be pumping that water right back down the hole, and we have to manage that water. If for some reason both pits are full and they're halfway done with the hole, we have to stop drilling. We can't risk that, because this is going to be a zero discharge. Water will not flow from those sumps across the pad and down into the creek. We just can't do that.
What is the time frame, the pumping process into pit 1 and then into pit 2? Is this just a matter of an hour, 2 hours, or is it days, or?
You mean how long it would be used?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on drilling conditions and how fast the penetration rate of the drill is. But if the ore zone is 100 feet thick, that's probably one 12-hour shift to drill that. So the second pit would probably get used much less than the other, but it's also a relief valve if the first pit fills up. And the other point I'd share is those sumps, those pits would be built in the footprint of the drill pad, right? They wouldn't be built outside it. So again, we've got ways to contain it. And if you have big rain events, you have to deal with it. You have to channel the water to make sure it's going the right way. And the other point that Angela made is we will have wattles, straw wattles down on the down gradient side of our disturbance to make sure that nothing gets past those as well.
Thank you.
We don't have any public comment on this application, no.
Okay, I thought there was one.
No, that is on the next item on the agenda. If there are no further questions, I am actually open to a motion on this CUP.
We don't have anybody else that wants to address the board?
No, nobody has signed up to address the board on this issue.
Okay.
Okay, Vic?
Well, I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we approve CUP 23-001 Tallahassee Resource Exploration Project with the contingencies that are listed in the packet.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, that'd be waivers, contingencies, and conditions.
Yes.
Thank you. A second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve CUP 23-001. Gardner.
Excuse me.
Aye.
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 All right, thank you. Thank you. It was a well put together project. Thank you.
Good luck.
I'm trying to get it up on here just in case it dies again.
All right. Item number 2 on our agenda is zone consolidation and rewrite. Dan, I will let you take it over from there.
All right. Let me try and recast this up. I have one about to die, and I'm trying to get the other one going, but it's not going smooth. So, good thing I printed a bunch of stuff out. All right. So the first bit of this, last month I presented. Last month I wound up presenting the first bit of the zone consolidation and rewrites. So the first bit of this will be the airport zone district, the low density residence zone district, the manufactured home park zone district. In those three districts, we're proposing 0 changes, just new formatting to match what was proposed last time. So in those 3, what's in front of you is just a facelift.
Okay.
So if anyone has a question on that. Okay. The second part of this will be the minor changes. So planning and zoning has recognized the need for a review and update to the regulations. The following zone districts have updated uses and new formatting for compatibility with other sections of the Fremont County zoning resolution. The planned unit development had the procedure requirements and standards for approval moved to a new chapter where all the procedure requirements will be contained. So that is the only change to the planned unit development. So we can start going through this one. In the business zone district, we added distillery and the verbiage under a restaurant with or without a brewery. So right now in our regulations, we all kind of know breweries and distilleries are popular in Colorado. Our regulations don't allow for them. So we figured for compatibility with the surrounding communities, we added those, and we also added the ability for solar fields in the business zone district under the allowed uses. So under the SRUs and the business zone district, you can see contractor's yard 1 or 2. So currently our regulations kind of describe out a contractor's yard depending on what level of contractor's yard somebody's asking for. The smaller version is allowed in some places, the other version isn't. So in our general requirements, which you guys will receive probably towards the end, unfortunately that's become kind of like a living document where as we're cleaning up every other section, we're adding to that. So it makes sense to present it last. So I apologize on keeping you guys waiting on that one. So we've kind of broken it out and defined a contractor's yard 1 versus a contractor's yard 2.
Okay.
So that's one of the changes in the business zone district, and that's it for business. Just a couple uses and kind of defining things a little. So next up will be the industrial zone district. You'll see a little bit of highlighting on that contractor's yard 1 versus 2. And that is the only change to that district. Up next will be the industrial park. Again, under the SRUs is that contractor's yard, 1 verse 2, restaurant with or without a brewery, and solar fields. And that would be it for that zone district. And then lastly would be the PUD, where, let's see, which page is it? Under the PUD, that's where I explained that the procedure requirements and standards have been moved to that separate section. So we didn't change anything there. We just took some of the requirements and put it where other requirements are supposed to be.
Okay.
To try and clean up that regulation. And then last but not least would be that rural highway district. Or sorry, rural highway business. In rural highway business, we are adding distillery as a use, restaurant with or without a brewery. Under the SRU portion of that is that contractor's yard, 1 verse 2. And those are all the changes in these 5 zone districts. Any questions? All right. And lastly would be the high density, medium density. So we currently have a low density, a high density, and a medium density. If you bear with me 2 seconds. What we are looking to do is to consolidate the medium and high density residential zone district. So you can see to the allowed uses. So let me backtrack a second. The proposal in front of you is a consolidation of these 2 districts into a new high-density residential zone district. The changes include reformatting, a new zone description, the development requirements of the MDR zone district, the medium-density residential zone district, becoming the standard, and a consolidation of the uses of the 2 zone districts and adding new uses to the regulations.
Okay.
So we've made it to where all of the requirements from medium are now the requirements of high. So nothing will be non-conforming. So high will now have the standards of the medium district. So what we have in front of us is in the medium zone district, or the, stand by. The medium density residential district, assisted living used to be an SRU. Boarding and rooming house used to not be allowed in the medium zone district. Let's see. Right now, medium density residential limits to 6 units, whereas the high density was 3 units or more per structure. Medical clinic was not allowed in the medium district, and a bank with a drive-in was an SRU in the medium zone district. Beyond that, we have lot coverage and building height being changed. So those are the only changes. We've added some uses. We've combined the uses, and we've gone down to the requirements of medium. That is the bulk of the consolidation.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any, Mrs. Charlotte Norman, wish to address the board on this issue?
Hi.
Hey.
My name is Charlotte Norman. I'm the president of the board of directors of the Penrose Water District. Penrose is a special district that has one purpose, As a government, we provide municipal water to the unincorporated area known as Penrose. I apologize to you all. I'm a little late coming into your process. I know you've been working on this for a long time, and I'm just starting to catch up. Our constituents have been asking us some questions about your process, which actually brought it to my attention. One of the things I noticed looking through your consultant's affordable housing report was that infrastructure is of primary concern to you as you go through this process. So I'd like to offer to you and to your staff that my board and our staff is available to go over our infrastructure restrictions. As a district, we don't have very much water. We've spent the last 20 years trying to secure more water, getting it into our community, but we are very limited and there is really not any more available to us. So that's a primary consideration for us moving forward with zoning and attempting to build affordable housing in our area. You've got my phone number. That's a phone number for our office. You can ask for me or for our district manager, Ron Gasser, at that number. And I would really appreciate it if you would reach out to us and we could maybe get together manager to manager or board to board in a smaller setting without taking up everyone else's time. Thank you for your work. I'm kind of stunned by how much you guys have gotten done on this zoning rewrite. And I see for the most part, seems to be going in the right direction, making things easier for all of us. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Can I just get your contact info? And one thing worth noting is, so right now we're doing our consolidation and rewrite, and we're trying to update uses. But simultaneously, we do have the affordable housing study going on. So none of the affordable housing stuff has been implemented in yet. They're still in their research phase. Sure. So we're separate yet together. So we're all going to come together in an end. But I would love to meet with you and have a discussion.
All right. And we have a board meeting next Monday, and I'll bring this up to my board, and I'll make sure that our district manager is aware that we may be in contact with him about that. And if you guys have a work session and you want one or more of us to come to it, please reach out and let us know.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, do you have any questions for Dan on the zone consolidation and rewrites?
I do appreciate the work they've done, and thank you. It kind of makes our job a little bit easier when you can tell us about all these comprehensive changes that we're making.
And one thing I probably left off for y'all is if you decide to make a recommendation on this today, we're still shooting for that approval adoption date. So,
okay,
figured probably note that.
And so today, this is just an informational meeting. We're not being asked for a decision.
If you guys make a decision today, then it could be scheduled for a public hearing and presented to the county commissioners for that formal adoption date. So if you guys were to make a recommendation for this change, then we'd be able to get it scheduled for the next step in the process.
Okay, so the motion today would be a recommendation that we accept the changes as presented.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the zone consolidation rewrites that Dan has presented. All in favor? Rugel?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. And thank you, Dan, for presenting that.
Thank you, everyone.
With no further business, commissioners, or Dan, we will adjourn the meeting, 4:09. Thank you all.